Oh, there we are.
Hello.
Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to Soul2Soul. Another week. I'm so excited. Ame-Lia, you're back with me. I missed you last week.
Yeah, I miss you too. I miss you too. Although I gotta say, being in the desert was real nice too.
Hmm.
And I'm glad to be here with you right now.
Yeah, welcome, you guys. Another week of Soul2Soul with myself, Joy, Ross, and
Ame-Lia Tamburrini. Yeah, good to be here.
yes, you guys, you know the drill. We show up every Wednesday and we just talk unfiltered. We talk about whatever's on our hearts, our minds. Sometimes we talk about things pertaining to the work that we do in the world. Sometimes we just talk about things like I did last week. So, yeah. Ame-Lia, what is up? Okay, can we talk about this desert experience? Like, what in the world?
Oh gosh, it's a funny experience because I love being in nature and camping and hiking, and my soul was really craving that. So a good friend of mine, who we travel with quite a bit, but we've never done like a nature desert experience together. We've done like New York City and really social cycling trips and things like that. And I got really clear that when I'm in nature, I like silence. And I like calm, and I love deep conversation because that's just where my soul is. That's where I go to listen to my soul. And so my friend and I, who we travel quite a bit, like it was a different dynamic in our relationship, which I had to navigate, and I wish I didn't have to navigate. I chose to navigate, which was really interesting. And there was all sorts of stuff that went on this trip that was supposed to be like peaceful zen, but we were camping and I was in a tent, and so I heard everything in the campground, and there were tons of like big groups of people because we were really close to LA. We were in the Mojave Desert. And like I was up till like midnight, 1 a.m., not getting any sleep, listening to these conversations. So it was one of these trips where I really had to go inward quite a bit and ask myself, okay, like, what is going on right now for you? And how do you want to be in this moment? Just being like so sleep deprived and really not having this experience be what I had originally imagined.
Mm.
It was it was good and it was amazing. Like just I do feel rejuvenated. My soul was like soaking in all the different nature, just seeing things that are
Mm.
different than my environment. And I realized I haven't traveled internationally since like for 3 years, which for me is very rare. And I was being fed in that moment of remembering the beauty, the education, the different perspectives that come from putting myself in different locations around the world. So,
Mm.
yeah, that was the trip in a
What I'm
nutshell.
hearing, what I'm hearing is so it was a growth. When you were painting that picture about friends traveling, I was like, "Ooh, this could be fun." Either way, I'm like, "Oh, so it was a growth opportunity, is what it was, right?"
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
what it felt
thing.
like.
Isn't that funny how there can be people in your life who you really enjoy, whose company you absolutely enjoy. You enjoy just the connection. And at the same time, those aren't necessarily, and I'm not saying this is the case with the person that you were traveling with. So let me just add in case that person's
Mhm.
watching, I'm not even like, that's not what this is, but like just the reality of you can have people who you're really close to doesn't necessarily mean that you guys are going to click and mesh well together while traveling. So when you said that, like when you get out in nature, you like quiet. I'm like, yeah, that's me, or that's like me with doing any sort of exercise outside, right? You know how sometimes you see friends walking or running together outside and like talking. That's not, no, not me. I'm like, no, that's like my time to have the headphones on. I want silence. That's me. I might want to just be in like silent prayer mode or just enjoy the quiet of no talking.
Yeah.
So I don't work out with friends. I've been invited. I have friends who are like, oh, well, we're so busy. Maybe let's just work out together. I'm like, no, can't. No.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. What what I really appreciate about this trip, it was a growing experience, and I got to practice just asking for what I needed, and not be worried about my friend being grumpy about that or not liking me or the situation. And Ame-Lia of past would have absolutely just packed my needs aside, built up a whole bunch of resentment, come home being like kind of bitter or really disappointed about the trip. And that just didn't happen because I kept going inward and asking myself, okay, what is it that I need and what do I need to communicate? And what do I just need to give to myself? And it was cool, actually, that kind of a reflection.
I just had a silly, I was just telling you before we went live, I'm feeling very silly today. So I cannot be held responsible or accountable for anything that I might say during these next few minutes of being on video today. But no, seriously, I'm wondering, like, how many times did you think or say, like, can we just have a moment of silence? Okay, now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go do this right now. Because seriously, that can be difficult to navigate. And on a serious note, it does make me think about the importance and the freedom in knowing ourselves. So like when you said the Ame-Lia of old would have responded this way, it really did prompt me to go a couple levels deeper under the surface with what we're really talking about here. So it's like, yeah, we're laughing and we can talk about like the trip, and yeah, some people you just don't want to work out with, don't want to travel with or whatever. But I think at the core, this is really about the freedom in being able to know who you are and what you like, what you don't like, what your preferences are, and to be okay with that, and to not feel like you have to shrink back or like, oh, well, I really want this, but I can't say it because I'm more concerned about what, in this case, a friend is going to think. But in a broader case, I think sometimes we get into this more concerned about what people are going to think. And therefore we don't allow ourselves the freedom to really be us.
Yeah, 100%. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, often we learn the most about ourselves when we're in those situations that don't feel so good. Um, I'm just coming off this call with a bunch of human resources professionals, and the topic today was sort of like what happened to connection with the COVID and people needing to work remotely all of a sudden versus being in the office. And what I heard over and over in the call was that, some people thought they were just like, no, I'm an office person. Like I need the office space. And then when they were forced to work at home and went through that adjustment period, they actually discovered that, oh, you know what? I actually like working from home. And some of them now just prefer that solely, and some of them want a combination of both, and some of them, really got clear that they do prefer to be in the office with a whole bunch of people. And so that was a painful situation, like globally, that we all went through, but it allowed for people to learn more about their preferences. And now, of course, people are, adapting and adjusting and trying to figure out what that looks like going forward. But I think that's what is clear to me and what when you were sharing is that we do learn a lot when we're in those situations that don't feel so good.
It's certainly an opportunity to learn, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
it's exactly that. And then we can choose to learn, or we can fight. We can
Mm.
fight that work. And I'm thinking about
Yeah.
2020 in particular, right? Because COVID's not gone. So I choose to not say after COVID and before COVID, because like COVID's still here, right?
Yeah.
So in 2020, during all the shutdowns, right? And as I was doing my show, Living Inside Out Today, and interviewing people for a while, I was engaging almost every guest with that question, like what has been your experience
Mm.
during the early days, the early months uh, of 2020, and how have you been challenged, and how have you navigated? And almost every single time, actually in every case, the answers may have been different in terms of the specifics, but what everybody said was there was some good that came out of it.
Mm.
Even though initially, it may have been, oh my gosh, like hated it. It was really hard. There may have been some, some negative things, like business came to a standstill, or like economically, financially. But on the other side of that, it was every single time people talked about what they learned and how they grew personally, and how they transformed as a result of being forced to sit. Like literally, you couldn't go to a restaurant. Literally, you couldn't physically go to the office. You physically couldn't get up and like go to the gym or whatever, because those places were closed. So it's like that. Ooh, now I've got to face me.
Mm.
That I don't have any other options was uncomfortable across the board. Just thinking about the people that I interviewed, and across the board, once they said, okay, this is what it is, and really like I don't have a choice, then some beautiful things emerged.
Mm.
And maybe that's how it is, like in life. Sometimes we have a choice to go into growth mode, or to go into change, right? Sometimes life forces that upon us.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of, holy cow. Now, how am I going to navigate this situation that I did not want, I would not have chosen, but now here it is. Will I allow myself to, to like breathe
Yeah.
and maybe have those conversations with myself that, if I'm honest, I've been avoiding.
Mm. That's some deep self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me that what's coming up for me and what you're sharing is it's sort of that ability to say yes and accept in on some level whatever is in front of us, which reminds me of that parable. And I don't know what tradition they share this parable in, but about the farmer. And I don't know if we've talked about this on this show yet, but
Mm-hmm.
where there's a farmer and his son is, and this is my version of it, so don't quote me if you all know it out there. There's a farmer, his son comes home and he's just found like 5 horses that were, wild, but whatever. And so the neighbor comes over and he's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, your son found these horses for you. And the farmer responds, well, I don't know if it's good or bad, it just is.
Hmm.
And so the son is trying to to train one of the horses and falls off and breaks his leg. And the neighbor comes over and he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's so tragic about your son." And the farmer said, "Well, I don't know if it's good or bad." And then it's wartime. So the people come by and they are recruiting folks to go to the war. And of course, the son can't go because he's injured. And the farmer comes, the neighbor comes by and he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Your son doesn't have to go to the war." And it goes on and on and on like this, right?
Yeah.
So you can see the neighbors just like, like up, down, up, down, up, down. And the farmer, the dad is like, "Well, we don't know what this is. It just is." And so that's something that I'm observing of myself more in this chapter of my life than previous chapters, of that acceptance of what is in front of me, like really getting present in the moment when I want to get into, man, this sucks. And, I want it to be another way, and trying to force things to happen, to just breathe, like you said, and say, okay, well, this is here right now. So what is the opportunity, or how do I want to respond? What is my choice in this moment? And I am really enjoying that transition, because I just have so much more calm, and less wasted energy on things that I have no control over.
All right, here we go. Here we go with there's always some little divine connection, right? Here it is. First, on a silly note, but not really. My question is, where did he get those horses? And did he find them, or did he take them and then claim them as his own?
Yeah, I think that's the part of the story that I really don't get right every time I tell it. So I do want to go looking up, because I don't actually think that's, anyways.
That's all right. And that's just me, like, kind of being silly, but also kind of thinking about, the reality of, and me accepting at this point, the reality of how things, see things, we take, we claim them as our own. And it's like, no, it's not, you stole that. So to your point about acceptance, I wasn't even going to bring this up, but I feel like, ooh, this was for me to bring up because you said the word. So I've been thinking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And partly because, and last week when you weren't here, I just talked about environmental justice, climate justice. And I've personally been thinking about these things for a couple of reasons. One is Black History Month. For me, it still is, even though it's March 1st. And February, so technically yesterday ended Black History Month. But I heard that this week is Black Women Celebration Week or whatever. I'm like, okay, I didn't even know that was a thing, but I'm here for it. Okay. So because of the work that I'm doing, and just the month of February, I was being intentional about trying to immerse myself in all things Black, right? Whether it's Black movies or, let me learn some things about Black history, because there's a whole lot that I don't know, right? So I was in this setting where I was hearing people talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it got me thinking about the acceptance factor, right? Because to me, like, diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's one of those things that has become very popular, right? It's one of those things that almost every single organization, it's almost like, oh, well, of course we need that. We need DEI. We have a DEI officer? Okay, almost like checking a box, right? Because there's a little bit of societal pressure, right? There's a little bit of, well, if we don't have a DEI initiative, what does that say about us? And God forbid, not even knowing, not even pausing to say, well, wait, if we don't have that, what does that say about us? Like, if we sit there long enough, maybe it doesn't say anything. because what is it exactly, right? So I was thinking about DEI and like the whole, I'm going to just call it checkbox fashion, in which a lot of organizations are going about that, right? It's like, oh, yay, we've hired a Black person and made them our, or a brown person, you know, a non-white person, whatever that is, and we've assigned them to be our DEI officer. So we, oh, yay, because we can check that box. But what exactly is the point, right? And that got me thinking about what are we actually, and I'll say we because I don't want to turn this, I'm not finger pointing. I'm really just sitting in a space and asking the question, what are we actually doing in an organization when we hop on this DEI bandwagon? What is the actual purpose? Then I started thinking about the words diversity, equity, inclusion. I have a problem with that word inclusion from the perspective of it implies there is this us and we are not including them. So now we are going to take some steps to include them.
Mm.
Fundamentally, I think that mindset is flawed and it doesn't advance what the real intent of DEI is, right? Because to me, it all starts with acceptance. So I grabbed onto that word and it brought me here because I really have been reframing DEI in my mind. I actually haven't shared it out loud because I'm like, ooh, I think I'm on to something. So it's a little half baked, but I'm moving in the direction, the more I think about that, moving in the direction of, hey, let's scrap DEI, because DEI in the way that people talk about it, it's something that's being placed on an existing culture or an existing thing that in and of itself is broken. So it can't produce the intended sustained change because it's the foundation is shaky. So I am wanting to erase DEI and replace that with, in my mind, it's ABC. It's replace it with, okay, let's start at a level of acceptance, meaning let's accept what is. Let's accept that, like in an organization, let's accept that the data actually says, ooh, we're looking at men and women, for instance, right, working the same job. And oh my gosh, we are factually. This is not emotional. This has nothing to do with arguing about women's rights or it. Remove all of that. Factually, we're paying men more than we're paying women. Let's accept that, right? Let's look at, oh my gosh, in management or leadership roles, 98% of those people in our organization are white. Let's just accept that. We don't have to get into a conversation about slavery or all the things that sometimes prevents people from even being able to change. Let's just accept what is. And then now that we're accepting what is, let's go from there into trying to, what do we do about it?
Yeah.
And I don't think we're accepting. I think that piece of acceptance is too often left out of these conversations. It certainly is left out of conversations about things like social justice, things like environmental justice, things like climate justice. I believe it also is often left out of the DEI conversations because it's just, let's jump in, right? So executive leadership decides, and in their minds, hey, we're doing the right thing because DEI is what we, yeah, we need to do that. Let's make sure that we're not being, called racist or whatever is going on in their minds, right? It's like, oh, we need to do this. And then it's just, oh, let's jump in without even pausing. Like, what is our actual purpose? What let's maybe start with looking at what is, because what are we trying to fix?
Mm. Totally. Yeah. I agree with you 110%. And I think I'm hearing this in a lot of circles recently, just like this whole DEI movement. It just feels very surface level, performance kind of based. Whereas, and your ABC acronym, my brain was like, do. What could that stand for? But yeah, acceptance. And then I was thinking behavior. So like, what are the behaviors that we need to uncover that led us here in the first place, that are creating the lack of inclusion, that are creating the lack of diversity, the lack of equity? And then C being commitment. What are we committed to? Because, and with commitment comes the vision. What do we want? What do we want this place to look and feel like? And I love the word belonging in this, like creating
That was my
cultures.
B. That
Oh,
was my
belonging. Okay.
acceptance, belonging. So
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, cool. I didn't hear the ABC. So yeah, what was your BC then?
the B was belonging, and
Yeah.
I like your behavior. So now I'm expanding it, right? Because we can go
Yeah.
deep into the B. Belonging was my thought. I
Mm-hmm.
like your thing on behavior. My C was co-creation, but it was also
Mm.
culture, because I think when
Yeah.
it comes to organizations, everything ultimately stems from the culture. So you have to address what is our culture, and it was co-creation.
Yeah.
There needs to be, in order to have sustained fundamental change, it needs to be an us thing, not a here we are and we are going to talk among ourselves and figure out how to include them. It's like
Mm.
that's absurd,
Yeah.
but that's what we do.
It's safe to do that. It's
But
safe because you don't have to sit in the same room and have the honest conversations. I think I love just starting at acceptance, because I look at this a lot in the work of truth and reconciliation with Indigenous communities. And so often, for years and years and years, and it's still happening today, people want to get on with the reconciliation piece of it and skip over the truth. The truth is still being uncovered, like the layers and layers of truth of what is. And we cannot get to the reconciliation or the belonging pieces if we're not looking at what is now and accepting it, and everyone's going to have their emotional journeys in that process. And we can create spaces for that if necessary or not. People, that's an individual responsibility. And if we don't do that work, we're going to just keep recreating the same of the same with different labels, attached to it.
agreed.
Yeah. I love what this is all feeding into the leadership program I just created and developed, which is essentially like, as leaders, as change makers, are we going about creating change in the same way that we created everything else that we have with us today? And can we pause and really look at these bodies that are in this work and start to unpack how it is we are showing up in colonial, racist, patriarchal ways that we're unaware of? Like, really, we're just still unpacking the truth, and then do the work to recondition our bodies and get clear on what it is we want to co-create. I love the word co-creation. Together going forward. So yeah, once again, we're just so aligned in terms of like, we haven't communicated in weeks, and here we are showing up being like, oh yeah. Same page.
Oh, I know, right?
Very cool.
And this all, it all for me too drills down to asking the question um, openly and honestly, and with no preconceived notions, and really being able to accept the answer, whatever it is. What is our purpose, right? Why are we doing this? And I think that question can be applied to any initiative, any of these initiatives, whether it's DEI, whether it's, you know, what here in the States our government is doing, federal down to local levels, to achieve climate justice or environmental justice. And I think all of those things are like, yes, these are necessary things. When it comes to the implementation and the doing of it, I think we don't ask, and I say we because I don't want to make it seem like I'm pointing fingers. I'm not really into us and them sort of thinking. I don't like to go there, but we don't ask the why. I mean, it may be that there was a civil action. It may be that a lawsuit was the thing that woke everybody up. And yeah, kind of like COVID. Okay, now we have to sit the F down because we would not have otherwise done it. All right. Okay, so yeah, it may have been that there was a lawsuit or something like that that forces a company or a municipality or a state government entity to look at something. Okay, but so we're here now. Now, what are we actually wanting to do? What is actually our purpose? Because it can't just be let's create some fake checklist of things so that we can say, oh, we complied with the lawsuit. Okay, what is even the point?
Yeah.
Because then you're not really doing anything.
Yeah.
What is our purpose? And I would say to any organization who would hire me to come in to help consult on DEI, okay, let's start with what is it that you actually want to achieve here? And we're going to stay on this until answers start to emerge other than, oh, because we have to. Not good enough.
Yeah.
Because if there's no motive deeper than, oh, this is just what we have to do, then it will be impossible to affect change because your culture is not going to change. You're there, it's impossible. Then you don't really want to do this. And then that's your acceptance. So accept that, sit with that. And when you're ready, then you'll be ready. But you're not ready now.
Yeah. The beauty of the pause is what I'm hearing in that. I think when these things happen, we can get into fear and be like, oh, we got to take action like now, without having that pause and just thinking and being, and not even thinking, but feeling, and just getting clear on that why. Like I love that you're bringing this into this space. It's so important. And people, if you're listening, like this, we're talking about big structures, and I've certainly experienced this in the environmental assessment process too, whether it's NEPA in the United States or up here with our Impact Assessment Act. Like it's fundamentally been a checkbox approach forever, which is why we are in the state we are in an environmental perspective. And this is everyday life. Everyday life. We all have these moments where something comes in and we have an ability to make a choice, but are we pausing and really getting clear on what is this for us? And why are we stepping, like, Yeah, just grounding into the purpose, like you said.
Mm-hmm. So you guys, woo, we did
Yeah.
I don't know what just
Where
happened.
did
We
we
just
start? We were in the desert.
I know. We started with the desert and having laughs and talking about friendships and being comfortable in our own skin. Like sometimes we're just like, leave me alone. No, I don't want, no thanks. I'll jog alone or I'll walk alone. And then we ended up here. Well, that's what we do on Soul2Soul.
That's right. Yeah, so let us know what's coming up for you in this. What do we call this? This I was going to call it a saga, but in like a good way, like the
Yeah.
story. Yeah. What's coming up for you? What's in your heart? Where are you feeling that kind of urgency to take action in your body? And is that an opportunity for you to also just pause? Where is that coming up for you? Because that comes up for me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we live in that world that says like, go, 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 take action, like think quick on your feet and like, let's get things done already. And I don't think that's the way going forward. So we're deconditioning our bodies. So this is an opportunity to explore that.
Yeah. Agreed. So
Yeah.
let us know what you guys think. Who knows? We might continue this next week.
Yeah.
Because it's a life thing. It's ongoing. So
I love it. Yeah, we'll be here next week, same time.
same time, same channel.